Okay, so this tutorial is going to show you how to make the synth.
To see, but as long as you are with me.
So you can hear that's my version of it. First thing we need to do is to add a new software instrument. Okay, when we've done that, I'm just going to copy what I've already got on my synth track down onto it. This is the horrible piano it's already got in there. So we need to change that setting from the electric piano to the ES2 synthesizer, which looks like this. We're going to work from the default setting, and the first thing we need to do is to get this somewhat closer to it. So we're going to turn off absolutely everything in what we call the routing matrix. So first of all, turn vector mode to off, and then if you hold down Alt and click on the source on each of the routings, it will turn each of them off. Okay, also going to turn off two of my oscillators. And I'm going to set this one to sine wave. Okay, the sound this is based on is a sine wave, but you can hear now the envelope isn't quite right. So we're going to adjust the envelope. So this sound has a very short attack. So we're going to turn the attack down. Quite a short decay. It has no sustain whatsoever and a short release. So I'm going to turn that down a little bit as well. You can hear we're much closer to the sound now. Okay, just going to adjust the analog setting to turn it down a bit because at the minute it's going a bit too out of tune. The reason we do that is because we're going to make that effect manually so that we have something to write about in the logbooks. So we're going to turn on a second oscillator, put it also on sine wave, and change the blend on them so they blend together. Want more of oscillator 1 than oscillator 2. And then we need to make sure we turn these settings to hard and to reset the filter. This means every time the note's pressed, the oscillators will start in the same place. I'm going to turn oscillator 2 down to be an octave below oscillator 1. Then we're going to make it out of tune. I'm going to turn it around 30 cents higher than it needs to be, and we're going to make the oscillator 1 flat by about 30 cents as well, so minus, I'm going to put 2080. Okay, going to adjust the filter slightly next, so going to change it onto a low pass filter, make sure it's letting most of the sound through so it just cuts off the top end. Going to just tweak the second oscillator. We're not going to second filter. We're not going to use very much of it. Just add a little FM in on it. Add in a bit more resonance. Turn the cutoff down a bit, and we're going to make sure the blend is mostly up towards the first filter. Okay, next thing we need to do is to make these go a bit more out of tune. So I'm going to use the router, going to affect the pitch on all three oscillators, and we're going to set the source as envelope 2, make sure the wire's off. We're just going to adjust this envelope so we have a short release, so it affects it a little bit on the release, and a short decay, so it affects it there. And we want this to make it go sharp, so we're going to turn it down into negatives. Okay, we're also going to set one up going from the pitch to the LFO as well. This will just wobble the pitch slightly. Okay, just going to change a few settings on the flange effect, and that's our sound done. Doesn't sound much like the sound I have though, because there's a few effects we need to apply. So the first thing that we're going to do is to add in some EQ. So the EQ has a massive roll off on the bottom end, okay, because we just really wanted the harmonics from that low oscillator, so we're going to get rid of it using EQ and a small presence peak as well. So I'm going to add that EQ onto my sound, and it will instantly sound more like what I had. Okay, the next thing I did was to add a stereo spreader, just because I wanted it to sound a bit wider. I just used the medium-high spread preset. So you'll find that under imaging and stereo spread. And you can just load the preset in. Medium, low, high frequency spread. And the last thing was some reverb. Again, this is just a preset. Make sure you add it on a send and on a bus. Okay, so I'm going to send my new version of the sound to the same bus by a small amount. And that's the sound. Now later on, we've got some low chords. This is a slightly modified version of the same sound. It's exactly the same settings in the ES2, but it's got no stereo spread on it, and the EQ is slightly different. The roll-off goes only to around the mid 150 sort of mark, not 300.